Hey Zwifters, and welcome to a special episode of the Zwiftcast, devoted entirely to a wide-ranging interview with the Zwift CEO, Eric Min. This is the conversation exactly as it happened. There were no restrictions on what I could ask Eric, and I tried to cover as much ground as possible. As a result, it's quite a lengthy old chat, but as Eric is about to tell us, the average length of a Zwift session is a full hour. So all you have to do is another half lap of Watopia on top of that, and you'll hear the full Montgomery. Hope you enjoy it. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Simon.
Now, the last time we spoke in depth, just under a year ago, you were planning to introduce the Watopia course extension, launch the event module, develop workouts, and you were looking to clamp down on profanity in messaging. All that's been achieved, and we've had the introduction of the London course and the Zwift Academy, and there's been lots of other exciting stuff along the way. I think even the sternest critic would concede that Zwift has come a long way in a year. So thanks so much for making yourself available to kind of discuss the state of the Zwift nation. I'd like to talk about some of these things, but perhaps more importantly, and of great interest to listeners, is what's likely to be ahead. Now, many of these questions have come straight from the Zwift community, and I'm going to pitch in with one that I think you might enjoy answering. Where has Zwift exceeded your expectations in the last year? And thanks to John Hampton for that question.
Well, that's a good question. When we started this business, we thought we probably knew what the customers would want, but that's often not the case. We haven't pivoted as a company, but we've made so many micro adjustments along the way, we've relied on intuition in the beginning, but we are starting to collect so much data. That the data is inferring quite a bit about what the community likes or doesn't like. So working with the community, getting the feedback from them has been really, really interesting for us. The ride time, that's an interesting one. I sort of expected the ride time to be on average 20, 30 minutes. It's an hour.
Wow.
I mean, try to go to a gym and sit on a stationary bike for 1 hour. It is really, really tough.
Yeah.
So that's been really surprising for us even. And the other is addiction, right? I mean, we've always talked about it, but I'm sort of the living proof. I'm fallen victim to that. I need to Zwift almost every day, and I get irritated when I miss a day of Zwifting. It's quite funny. And the engagement, I mean, that's another interesting thing that's exceeded our expectations. We have one Facebook group. The community has created over 100 Facebook groups, and the largest one being Zwift Riders with almost 17,000 users. So that's been really fascinating. And then, of course, the community support. I mean, it's terrible for me to say this, but I get pinged a lot on social media, and my first response will be go and post that question on Zwift Riders, because I can guarantee you're going to get a quicker response than the support team that we have in California. Yeah. So we've been able to work with the community, and essentially everyone is crowdsourcing support, and I think that's worked out beautifully. Yeah. So it's not just one thing. It's a number of different things that's really exceeded our expectations with Zwift.
Yeah. It definitely is a high engagement product. I mean, I think that has a large part of the explanation of that is because it involves sweating. But that drives this next question, which also came from John Hampton, actually, because the product is so high engagement, and I think people feel very passionately about Zwift. On the very, very, very few occasions when there is a minor slip up, there's quite a kind of disproportionate reaction. And this is always a tough question for a CEO of a company to answer. But where do you think Zwift has fallen short in the last year?
That's, we have pretty big ambitions. And, what we're finding is, building a team, building a product, a business, company, these things always take longer than you expect or plan for. So I guess, we're, as a business, we're almost 3 years in. Um, and, of course, we would like to be further along, but these things just take time. And I think so. I recognize that, and that's why we've gone out and raised sufficient capital to sustain ourselves and really invest in the business. And I think that's where other companies who've tried to do something similar perhaps have fallen short. It takes time. It takes a lot of money to make this a successful business.
And of course, the money raising is incredibly exciting, and is going to open up lots of questions. And I am going to tackle that later on in our conversation. But for now, I'd just like to keep it kind of relatively general. Yeah. And this is a really good question from Daniel Abbott. How close is Zwift to what you think it could be?
So it goes back to my previous answer. I'd say from 1 to 10, we're probably at level 2.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've just barely scratched the surface of what Zwift could be, and it's just taking time to build the basic building blocks of what we need for the platform. But the new capital is going to help us accelerate the growth of the business, product, and marketing, support, all of the things that I think we wish we had more of.
Yeah, and is that too, Eric? Is that a 2 for functionality, or is that a 2 for number of subscribers, or is it just a general 2?
I would say it's a general 2. As a business, we're at 2. I mean, you could argue we're having a success, but it's really still on a relatively small scale. I think as a business, this could be massively large. I mean, it is a very small community that we have at the moment, but we've specifically targeted the hardcore cyclists. But I think there's an appeal there for the broader fitness community, and that is a very, very big market.
Yeah, and we will get on to running later and what impact that may have on core cyclists, of whom there's a large proportion on the platform at the moment. But just for now, again, I want to stay fairly general and serve you up a bit of a patsy here. What's the thing that Zwift has done in the last year that's made you most proud?
We get requests, product feature requests every day. We get investors telling us what they would like in the product. So we get pulled in lots of different directions. But I think we've done a pretty good job of building. The biggest thing we should be concerned about is building something that no one wants to use. And I don't think we've built anything that has been a waste of time. We're constantly doing small experiments, but I think I'm pretty pleased that we've made the right choices along the way. And a lot of that has to do with, John Mayfield, who is the product manager and the lead developer. He has 15, 16 years of video game building experience. He has great intuition. He understands cycling. So he'll get requests from marketing. He'll get requests from support. And he's got a tough job of, trying to figure out, what is the right order and the right priorities for the product. So I'm pleased that we've not wasted any resources in building something that the community might not like.
That's a really interesting answer. For any head of a business to say that you're most proud of not wasting time, I think is kind of impressive, really. Now, I was hoping in that answer you might mention the Zwift Academy, which I've kind of been banging on about in the Zwiftcast as something that's just a little bit under-promoted, perhaps, by Zwift, because it is an absolutely fantastic initiative. That said, there is still a bit of a problem with Zwift and women, isn't there, in that there just aren't many on the platform?
That's right. And so. Let me tell you a little bit about the. I'll talk a little bit about Zwift Academy. The inspiration came from GT Academy, which is a large driving game that's been around for a number of years, and they worked with Nissan to create this academy, find a real driver in gamers. They've been running for 7 years, and last year they had 700,000 applicants, and they have been producing real drivers. Now, part of that, more recently, I think if you're a good amateur driver, they've figured out that you can go through GT Academy and land a professional contract. But the point is that Zwift could be a very efficient way of finding talent and giving opportunities to people that you otherwise wouldn't find if you're an owner of a team. It's also, another example would be, this is what I've been told, British cycling had gone around to all the schools around the country and did with a watt bike to test children.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, one of the riders who comes from 5 or 6 miles from where I live is Lizzie Armitstead, now Lizzie Damien, and that is exactly how British cycling found her.
I think they also found Cavendish, right? And so there's no reason. So Zwift is a more efficient version of exactly what British cycling did. And the reason why we picked the women's competition instead of men's competition first is twofold. One is because we do want to promote cycling to women. Women represent about 10% of our community. Probably on the road, it's probably 25%. So we do want to promote cycling to women, and I know it's very intimidating as a woman in particular to ride on the roads, open roads with traffic, or ride in a male-dominated pack. So I think Zwift is an interesting way, a very accessible way to get introduced to cycling, and it's surprising that you could learn about pack etiquette, right? And drafting and pacing. These are all things you can learn without actually, riding indoors. So I think Zwift Academy is an experiment for us. And I think for us in the first year to have 1,100 applicants, and now we're down to the final 12, and we'll, I think, go to final 3 in November, and I think in December they go to Mallorca. That is when you will hear more about Zwift Academy.
Okay.
But so Zwift Academy is definitely to help create awareness of women's cycling, how community can encourage more women to participate in the sport.
I mean, I do think that's a terrific theory, Eric, and it should make sense and it should yield practical benefits. But is your data telling you that there are any more women on the platform as a proportion of total users now than there were 12 months ago, for instance?
The absolute number has gone up, but it's so male dominated. So as more people are joining Zwift, it's still kind of holding at less than 10%. I think with the right program like Zwift Academy and equipment, I think that's a huge barrier for the ladies. It's intimidating, even for men to whether it's all the tech or the bicycle and trainer. It's a lot to ask someone to set up on their own. All of that is about to change in 2017, and now the iOS launch that we'll do this year is just the beginning, is the foundation for that.
Okay. This is the last question in this kind of general section. The competition, Trainer Road and Sufferfest have certainly raised their game. Their new platform looks really interesting, but to an extent they're kind of different from Zwift, really. But there will be potential copycats, surely. I mean, whenever something is successful and eye-catching, it gets replicated. Are you worried about that?
I'm not worried about it. And I can tell you that there are at least two already in China. They're notorious for copying. But I would say there's a huge difference, and we talk about this internally, there's a huge difference between a product and a business. and you can have a great product, but there's so many other elements and facets to make it a successful business. And so I'm not too worried. We've got so much on our plate, and I think we've got all the right ingredients. We need to focus on improving the experience and growing the community.
So it sounds to me as though you're not worried about competition.
I'm not worried, because we know that to do what we're doing takes a lot of talent. It takes a lot of capital. And so it's not so easy asking a customer to pay $10 a month.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm going to get onto a section of the interview which I know that listeners will be interested in. And I hope listeners are going to forgive me for not kind of nailing you to the ground and saying, when are we getting X or Y or Z? Because I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me when it's ready. However, there is an enormous appetite to know what's coming next for Zwift and the kinds of things and the sort of direction that we're going to be travelling in over the next 6 or 9 months. So I'm not going to ask you when, but I kind of am going to ask you what. What are the next 3 big things on the Zwift roadmap?
So I think you can expect to see course expansions. That's already underway.
Okay.
I can't tell you much more details, but pretty exciting from what I've seen so far.
Expansions of Watopia? Or new courses?
Expansions of Watopia, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think a mobile refresh is, if you look at our mobile app, it's served its purpose, but there should be a refresh coming fairly soon, and which will be much more which will be more efficient as a companion app.
Right.
So
what kinds of things is that looking to achieve, Eric?
I think at the moment the current app is not the most intuitive. It's functional, but I think the new version will just make it the information will be served to you rather than you having to dig for it. So it's our version 2.
Okay. Is it going to be easier to find people? Can I search for somebody and follow them on the new app?
Yes. Things like that will definitely be easier going forward.
Okay.
I think the one that we're all very, very excited about is voice, and that is under development. Don't know when that will be released, but I think in terms of engagement, I mean, I say this often to people internally, like, look, we're going to have to learn how to say hello in 12 different languages. But the notion that you can start having conversations while you're riding with complete strangers is essentially what you would do out on the real roads. And I think that's really, really exciting for many people.
Okay. How do you think that's going to contribute to the development of Zwift? Or is it just a feeling that you want to make the platform as lifelike and realistic as possible?
For me, the acid test of the things that we do is centered around social. Is this feature going to make the experience more social?
Right.
And I think the things that I just mentioned will do just that. The ability to connect with people, the ability to share. I think these are all things that the low-hanging fruit for us. So there's so much engagement already, but it is cumbersome to type when you're writing, right?
Yeah.
It is, there are often times when you wish you could just have a quick conversation with a complete stranger or someone you might know. So these are things that I think will just help us as a business. It will help us to grow it organically. I mean, it's the kind of thing you would want your friends to join, right? Because you want to share, and you want to be able to experience it together. And so we recognize that people are asking for that, and we're making efforts to make that happen.
Okay, you must have mapped this out. So, just give me a kind of picture of how a typical user would utilize the voice functionality. I mean, I assume you're not wanting to add yet more complication in terms of the need to obtain kits like headsets and mics and all that kind of thing. So I'm guessing you're going to be relying on the iOS platform.
That's right. And I think the mobile device is a perfect tool for that. Everyone's got one.
Yeah.
Probably have a mic, and it's not fully developed yet, but as we're going to try to keep this as simple as possible. I'd like to think that with one or two buttons you'll be able to connect with just about anyone.
Okay.
So that's all I know. It's still in development, but I do know that it's looking very, very positive.
Sure. Is there one thing that is going to really surprise anybody over the next 6 to 8 months that you've got up your sleeve?
I think so. I think it has more to do with where the industry is headed. It's not per se, Zwift specific, but I can honestly say that we're helping to drive innovation on the hardware side.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's on my list of things to ask you about. So, but I'll kind of press you here.
Okay.
So Zwift getting into the hardware business?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we have great partners. These guys know what they're doing. That's their core business. What wasn't their core business was building something like Zwift. So it's a perfect marriage, actually. And I think we've demonstrated to the industry that we can help them sell more trainers. And I think that will happen again with and I'll share this with you, but then you will see over the next 2 years an introduction of what we're calling the smart bikes. And these smart bikes are sort of the next generation stationary bikes, which will work out of the box with Zwift. So we're very, very excited about this new product. There's nothing. It's a concept at the moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist, but it is the kind of bike that a road cyclist would want in their home.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to compete with trainers, but you might not need both. What's nice about having a stationary bike is that I can convince my wife that it should belong in the living room and not in the garage because she can use it.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm sure you're not going to tell me this, but I'm thinking that Wahoo might be involved in that because Chip, when I spoke to him at Eurobike, clearly had something pretty big in development, but I guess you're not going to be drawn on that.
Yeah, I can only tell you that there's a big initiative by the industry, and no one's said a peep about it yet. But I think that's the first wave of product innovation that I think I think Zwift can take some credit in helping to influence, and I think that'll happen with treadmills once we roll out running.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the influence of Zwift on the trainer industry is undoubted. I mean, wandering around Eurobike, and I'm sure you were into bike and others. I mean, Zwift has revolutionised the state of the trainer industry. So, and let's move on to talk about running now. I mean, clearly you think that the treadmill industry is ripe for a similar kind of revolution. But here's the thing. Most Zwifters at the moment are pretty passionate cyclists. Mm-hmm. And, whilst we don't mind runners, I think we would be a little disturbed if we thought that Zwift branching into running was going to impact negatively on either the speed or the scale of development for the cycling platform. I mean, where do we sit on that?
So I don't think it's going to divert much resources. I'd say of course there's some product development involved, but I think it's mostly a marketing exercise and creating awareness as Zwift can also do running. But in terms of, we did a survey not that long ago, and I think the number was about 30% of the users said that they would do both. So I don't know if that's because we have so many triathletes, but I'm not. I'm the perfect example. I'm not a runner, but I think there's something to be said about mixing your activities. So I'm starting to alternate between riding and running. I'm not a runner. I can do 10-kilometer runs on Zwift. It's very easy, and for the same reason, I can ride for 60 minutes on Zwift. I can run for 60 minutes on Zwift. So these are just early tests that myself and John and a few other people within the company have done. But the general feeling is that we think it's going to work.
Okay. So are you saying that actually a lot of the grunt work to make it work is kind of complete, and in going into running, it's not the case that suddenly all work will cease on the development of the cycling side of the platform?
That's correct. And then the second part of your question is around the experience. At the moment, you're seeing runners on the side of the road. But I think once we properly roll out running, we're going to hit the trails. And I had this conversation with Mike McCarthy a few weeks ago, and that was one of the problems. Like running on the road, it feels like you're moving very slowly relative to the bike.
Yeah.
But imagine you're running on tight trails with vegetation on both sides. Suddenly, it feels like you're moving through space much faster, even though your speed hasn't changed. So I think we need to tweak that kind of experience. The easy thing to do is just put all the runners on the side of the road as a test, but that is not how we would ultimately roll it out.
Yeah, well, that sounds very interesting. Not that I'm anti-runner, Eric, but it'd be good to not have them in our way.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, well, look, this is specific, but I'm going to ask it because it just comes up so often. And the day before yesterday, I went back and listened to our interview of a year ago, and it's awful when people do that, and they come back to you and said, but Eric, you said a year ago that within a couple of months, depending on how quickly the community had grown, that you would enable user selection of courses. Now, that hasn't happened. So can you explain where we're going with this and why it hasn't happened and what the thinking is behind it?
Right. It hasn't happened. So there's work to be done. There is definitely product development to make that happen. But it hasn't been a priority because from our perspective, the community isn't big enough at any one time to warrant. So we're trying to keep the community together. And I'm betting that people show up on Zwift, even if they don't realize it. They're showing up on Zwift because there are other people there. It's a very different experience on Zwift when there's no one else on the map.
Yeah.
And I encounter this when we do our internal testing. There's no one else on the course, so we've just not made it a priority because we think the capacity just on Watopia is massive. I mean, yesterday we had over 1,000 riders at the peak, and the feedback I got from people who rode last night said that it didn't feel crowded. So we know that there's plenty of capacity for more riders. Now, I think this winter will be the winter when we might actually feel crowded. And I think if it's going to happen, it may very well happen this winter. So it's really about whether or not the course is feeling a little bit too crowded for the size of the community, and less about should we let people have choices to choose between 2 or 3 different maps.
But the thing is, Eric, I think you've got to the heart of it there, really, because I actually don't think it's an experience issue, because I've been on at the most populous and busy times, and it doesn't feel crowded. And actually, I think you could probably double the number and it still wouldn't feel crowded. I don't think that's the issue for people. I think people think, I'm paying $10 a month. Why can't I choose whether I get to ride in London, Richmond, or Watopia? I do think that's what people feel.
Yeah. So and what we're saying is that it will be more important for us in terms of scheduling that kind of work when the community is larger. And what we don't want to have are maps that are empty.
Okay.
And if we feel that it will be empty, we'd rather not serve that map at all.
Okay. Leave it to Zwift. Yeah, well, at least you know your own mind on that, and I'm sure people will listen to this and no doubt react to that way of thinking. So a couple of kind of quick sort of yes or no things. Velodrome, yes or no?
Eventually.
Okay. And you go on, yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see the velodrome, and I think there are other people certainly have voiced their interest in having one. I'm just wondering, and other people within the company are wondering if it would actually be fun. And so that's one. And then there are also questions of like, well, you can't fit 1,000 people on a velodrome. Next thing you have to worry about is like, okay, fine, we have to have 10 velodromes. Or you're going to have to limit the number of people who can enter the velodrome. So these are things, it's just, in the grand scheme of things, is that more important than, some of the other things that we're focused on, whether it's voice or platform support.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So the answer is yes, eventually.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, you've already talked about the fact that the significant course extension is likely to be Watopia. But London kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, might we expect that again?
Absolutely. I mean, it's, Richmond might be the exception, but all new maps going forward is meant to be expanded over time. And Watopia is only a 10th of the size it can be, just to put in perspective.
So again, I'm not sure that people fully understand sometimes what the motivation is for new courses. I mean, London and Richmond were both linked to large commercial events. Was there a commercial driver for the genesis of those courses?
I think, yes, absolutely. So we wanted to experiment with the World Championships in Richmond. And actually it was, from our perspective, it was very successful. We weren't sure if it was going to be fun. And, you get some who say they hate the course and others who say they love the course. So we serve that now 2 or 3 times a month. And just enough that people actually want to see more of it. Yeah. But what Watopia is our playground. We can do whatever we want with Watopia. And there's just some interesting things that you'll be seeing over the next this winter. But ultimately, I think if we were to do a survey, people would rather be on Watopia than the other 2 real maps.
Yeah. And are those maps there? Let me ask you bluntly, Eric, do those 2 maps, or have they raised revenue for Zwift?
No, absolutely not. We don't have those types of commercial arrangements with any of our partners. I mean, the deals that we have with our partners is just in kind. And, we are just co-promoters of each other's brands. We are not collecting any revenues of any sort from our partners.
Okay, interesting. Very good to have a clear answer to that.
Yeah.
How do you guys decide which feature requests to prioritise, and how do the ones that make it get to the top of the list, and who makes the final decision on which get advanced the quickest? I mean, you've kind of hinted that it's John.
Yeah, so as I said before, we do get requests from the community. We get requests from marketing and support, and yeah, I even make requests. But but
Don't
but
they get prioritized?
but and investors make requests. But John has a lot of freedom because we trust his judgment about what's right for the product longer term, and we give him he has that freedom as long as it's in sync with our business objectives. So actually, John has a lot of creative license within the company,
And,
and
and,
so
and a lot of power to decide by the sounds of things.
yeah, and absolutely, yeah. And so far, I would say that he's done a fantastic job of really, sort of navigating all the things that we could be potentially doing, and focusing on the things that really matter.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is there more work to be done with workout mode? I mean, could it be more scientific? Could there be more personalization? Could there be greater coaching input? I mean, I think the answer to all of those questions is almost certainly yes. But how far up the list of priorities is that?
So we've got if you look at what Zwift is, there are three doors at the moment, and I think there'll be more doors going forward. But the three doors, it's like you drop in and you do a free ride, just like in the real world, or you join an event, right? Or you do some sort of workout. And so if you look at how our community is using those three different things, it's pretty well balanced actually. So we need to divert resources to all three in a balanced way. So to your question about the workout modes, I'd say it's version 1. That's what you have right now. And we can definitely do a lot more. I'm not sure if it'll ever be so sophisticated that that we're catering to the real hardcore cyclists who are who want to be very scientific with their training. But it will definitely be more sophisticated than what you see today.
Yeah.
So we're not done with workout mode. I mean, we just did version 1.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And finally, on this kind of specific features area, I love the racing. I just think it's absolutely one of the best things about Zwift. And I mean, myself and I think the racing community have detected a pretty substantial shift from Zwift in their level of support and enthusiasm for racing. Is that true, or did we get it wrong when we thought you didn't like it?
Well, we weren't ready. I think it's great to have the community promote races. I'm not sure we need to be promoting very many events at all. I think the community inspired ones and organized ones are much more authentic. So of course we'll have some promote events, whether it's with a partner, but I'd rather see the community really driving the that kind of content.
Yeah.
And we're there having the tools for them to do more of that. And I think going forward, you might see potentially a toolkit for promoters. I mean, we have legitimately more than a dozen promoters. KISS is a promoter, ODZ is a promoter, DZI is a promoter. So I think that is a better strategy than to come up with our own series of events. But yeah, it's fantastic that the community has really created all of this content for the community. I mean, I think what I've been told by Charlie, who runs events for us, I think he's helping to schedule some 500 events a month.
Wow.
It's nuts.
Yeah. I think kind of what perhaps some people, maybe even most people, don't realize is that behind the scenes, you guys do work pretty hard to support racing. I mean, I know there's a lot of conversations that go on about how to make racing more effective and more popular that Zwift actively take part in. That is the case, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I guess I didn't answer your previous question. The reason, it's hard to police. It's hard to be the official of any race on Zwift because
Nobody wants to be the UCI.
no, well, I think I think guys who started Swift Power, for example, they've got great tools, and let them be the arbiter. Let them disqualify someone who they think is suspicious. And we have seen some riders who show up and do have huge, tremendous performance, but they have no profile outside of Zwift, so that's highly suspicious, right? And I would rather see the community police that kind of thing than for Zwift to come down hard and disqualify them. So that's worked out really, really well.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that's advantageous for you. I mean, nobody wants to run a company that's disqualifying its customers, do they? So.
Yeah, and yeah, we do kick people off. I mean, well, we've definitely reprimanded some customers who might not be behaving the way they should be, but for the most part, the community's been just fantastic. Also, having Zwift Power and promoters with tools that can track results was great before we actually had support for results.
Yeah.
We do have support for results now. So, but I think we're still going to shy away from arbitrating results. That I think Zwift Power and the guys in the community do a fantastic job.
Yeah. Well, I think most people would think that to be a sensible decision. I'm going to move on now to talk a little bit about the company, or at least ask you some questions about the company, which I know a lot of people in the community are interested in. And Mark Hewitt and others have made this point, that one of the most refreshing and unique aspects of Zwift is that it is run largely by people who understand cyclists and cycling. And I think, as this conversation proves, and your decision to allow me to ask anything at all and to devote a reasonable amount of time to it, is that the people who run Zwift will engage with the customers on a kind of really proper, serious level. And people really do like that. But as a result of that, I think you end up getting asked things that other companies might not, and other matters get discussed that in other forums might not. And again, I think that kind of relates back to this very high engagement that people have with the platform. So some of these might come across as a little bit audacious, but, I'm going to try.
Okay.
So TechCrunch, which is a well-respected technology blog, quoted a figure of 170,000 accounts for Zwift. Now, obviously, there's a big difference between accounts. Somebody may create an account, download it, and that's that, and a paying subscriber who's ponying up $10 a month every month.
Right.
First of all, how accurate was that 170,000 number?
We actually have over 180,000 accounts.
Okay.
And we've converted a big chunk of that. So I think those numbers are, they're largely accurate.
Okay. A big chunk, is that more than half?
I can't give you the specifics, but I can tell you that if we wanted to be, we could be profitable this winter.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah. So is subscriber growth, well, I was going to say where you want it to be. I mean, I'm probably guessing it's never where you want it to be. Is it where you is it where you forecast it to be? I mean, in the long period when you were considering launching this company, you must have had business plan after business plan after business plan, which said, in 2 years we need X number. Sure. Are you hitting those targets or exceeding them?
It's, I have very aggressive targets in my mind. So it's never, the reality is never going to match. But I'd say that we're pretty pleased with where we are. And there's no reference for what we're doing. And we've only been trading as a business for 12 months. So so the decisions that we make have largely come from intuition. Now we actually have real data, financial data that we can use to help us manage our business going forward.
Are you content with where you are?
We are. So we raised a fair amount of capital, and that's really for us to focus on improving the product experience and really growing the community. And it's no longer about profitability. It's
Okay.
really it's about growth.
Yeah, yeah. Well, lots of tech companies say that in the early days. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
even Amazon is still saying that. But let's get to the iOS app, Eric. I mean, eagerly anticipated. I'm not going to ask you when, because I'm sure you can say when it's ready. But I think we all know within maybe kind of 4 to 6 weeks. But is that, in this terribly overused word, is it really a game changer? And if it is, why?
We talk about this internally as well. I don't think it's a game changer. I've been searching for that silver bullet. There's no silver bullet.
No.
It's just a series of optimizations that will make us successful. And I think iOS is just one of those things that we need to have. Android will have in the new future as well. But will it help people, try Zwift? I think it absolutely will. The fact that my wife will be able to use her iPad to ride on Zwift or run on Zwift is really where we need to be to go after a much broader market.
Yeah.
It's no secret that it is difficult. It could be challenging for many to get onto just to try Zwift. There's so many different pieces, whether it's the computer, the trainer, the bike, is it 10 or 11 speed? I mean, it can be a nightmare. And I think for us to really grow our business, we need all of that simplified, both on the platform side, Zwift, and also on the hardware side. And this is where I think the smart bikes comes into play.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think iOS could be worth an additional 20% of existing subscriber base, 30, 40? I mean, what sort of, you must have put some numbers on it.
We didn't because I think without iOS, we can hit, the targets that we set for ourselves this winter is actually without iOS. So with iOS, it's just sort of like the icing on the cake for us. We just don't know. And so we didn't want to overpromise, but I think the reality is for sure it will be easier. We know that the people who've signed up for the iOS beta, I think 70% of them are not even Zwift subscribers.
Wow. Gosh. Well, that is illuminating, isn't it? I mean, that's very illuminating.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've said that if you chose to run your accountancy or accounts in a certain way this winter, you could be profitable, but presumably you are choosing to invest. Now, the money you have to invest, I think it's significantly over $25 million, and it's come, I think, perhaps you'll tell us, largely from venture capital companies. How are you going to spend that money, Eric?
Well, it's just we can finally grow our product team, our support team, our creative team,
right.
The marketing team. It's just across the board where we've been full gas for 2 years, and this just allows us to invest in more people and sort of get ourselves teed up for that growth. Product is, I think you can expect more from us on the product side at a faster pace, more platforms. And it also affords us, opportunities that we otherwise wouldn't chase. So I think,
give us an example of that.
How would Zwift fit in to a gym experience? Now, I can tell you anecdotally, we've seen, I wouldn't be surprised if there are 40 studios out there already, or 40 or 50 studios already running Zwift, maybe more.
Yeah.
I know brand new studios have started with Zwift.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have a commercial model for that business yet. We don't even have a special product experience for that, for those are specialist studios, but, how does Zwift fit into a big box gym?
Yeah.
And I think those are all interesting ways to introduce Zwift to those who are not even cyclists.
Yeah.
And I think so. We will be looking at that, over 2017, trying to figure out. And I think there's a place for Zwift. So let's think about the gym experience. I mean, has it really changed in the last 30 or 40 years?
Well, no, it hasn't really, has it? I mean, spin classes have got more noisy.
Well, leaving aside spin, or if you go into most gyms, it really hasn't changed. Fine, the equipment has been refreshed, or they've got new paint, or it's in a more posh neighborhood. But fundamentally, the experience is it hasn't really changed. And I think the question that I ask myself is like, could Swift, reinvent and reimagine the entire gym experience? And I'm talking beyond just cycling and running.
Okay. To where? What, rowing or?
Well, it could be rowing, it could be elliptical machine, it could be a lot of different machines that are out there. Of course, they have to be stationary.
Yeah.
But
What, cross country skiing? I guess anything that involves the outdoors and exercise.
absolutely, and it's only a matter of time before the VR headsets or AR headsets become, have the right form factor for exercise. It's coming.
Yeah.
I think we're probably 2 or 3 years away from that.
Yeah. I just want to wind backwards a little bit, because all those people who are out there who are paying $10 a month and are waiting for their feature requests to get fulfilled, I think are going to be probably quite heartened by your statement that a lot of this investment is going to be spent on people. I mean, does that just mean that lots more things will happen lots more quickly?
Well, I think we can have more things happen in parallel. We have the budget now to create 2 maps at the same time, for example.
Right.
We have the budget to work on, another platform much sooner than we otherwise would be able to. We can invest in we can seed new markets. We have pockets of users in over 125 different countries where we've done zero marketing.
Yeah.
So could we go into those local markets and activate that community? Yeah. And so these are things that we can now do. So all of those things I think will spill out over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Now, venture capitalists, I mean, it's a much misunderstood sector. I don't think it's quite as feared as kind of the myth around hedge funders. But nevertheless, lots of people will see the word VC funding or venture capitalist investment, and they'll think, oh my God, this product that I love to use is going to change out of all recognition. I mean, that's sort of not the way that VCs work, as far as I can see, because they have no real interest in killing the goose that's laying the golden egg, which is the thing that they've invested in. But can you tell us anything more kind of contextual about the type of investors? I mean, are they cyclists? Do they really understand the product, or are they simply investing in what they think is a really high growth business in an interesting area?
So we have private equity, but they're probably more like VCs. We have strategic investors, and we have high net worth individuals. I can tell you that every one of these investors are Zwifters, so they know it's not a pure financial play. I think they all see the opportunity. They're in no rush. They want to help. They're betting on a long-term play. So they see what we're doing. They think that we have the opportunity to really grow this business and go after a much bigger market than I think than other people might think. So I don't think people should be concerned about that. And the company as a whole is still owned by the partners and not by the investors. So I don't see anything changing. I think we'll just do more faster with the support of our partners, financial partners.
Okay. But the support of that partners, if, I mean, you know, in a year's time or 2 years' time or whenever, I mean, if the kind of exponential global growth across a whole series of areas comes to pass, it surely won't be very long before some mega corporation, you know, the Zwift shadow, Zwift starts making a shadow on their radar. So they come to you with an offer you cannot refuse financially. I mean, what happens then, Eric?
Well, it's just too early. We just started this business. I mean, I think that kind of question is still years away, and we have so much to do. We just got started. I think there are much bigger things are on the horizon than what people know of today. I mean, it's still relatively, let's be honest, it's still a very small business, but the potential is absolutely there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I personally, I think you're right. I think it's going to be a long time before you're fending off takeover bids with a sharp stick. Whilst we're on money, in-app purchases, yes, no, maybe?
I think it might come, and I think we would be very careful ensuring that it doesn't ruin the experience. We don't like the idea of people buying performance, but would people be willing to pay for a special skin? You know, skinning is a huge business within the gaming industry. You know, maybe someone's willing to pay a few dollars to have that, you know, limited edition Cervelo, for example. So that would be just an example.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not a priority.
Okay. And finally, on this area, which personally I find particularly interesting, so I hope people share my interest in these things. When you're recruiting for all these new positions, and I know you have been recruiting recently, but when you're recruiting in general for Zwift, do you kind of get overwhelmed with fantastically qualified, amazingly enthusiastic candidates, all of whom are dying to work for Zwift?
Well, if you know anyone, you know, send them our way. We're definitely. I mean, there's no doubt about it that people within the community would like to join the team, and you know, most of the growth is coming out of Long Beach, where we have our headquarters, and soon out of London. So yeah, and the truth is the community is scattered all over the world, right? So we do get lots of interest, and certainly after the TechCrunch piece, we're getting more, particularly from the recruiters.
Yeah. Well, they're always looking for business, aren't they? Yeah.
But you know, yes, I mean, you know, certainly within the Zwift community, you've got the passionate individuals already there, and it's just a question of marrying up their talents, and does that fit with what we need? But we're absolutely hiring for marketing, social media, you know, game developer. I mean, just across the board.
Okay, interesting. Let's we're almost done, and you've been very generous with your time. But let's talk about community, because it's so important.
Sure.
Is there a better way for the community to be organised rather than kind of via sort of ad hoc Facebook groups?
I have to say, Facebook is just an incredible platform. You know, I mean, yeah, they can improve how you know, discussions are organized, but leaving that aside, it's an incredible platform. So what we don't want to do is build something that other platforms already have, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or, you know, things that Strava does. So we've shied away from doing, you know, replicating what other platforms are very, very good at, and what more than likely where people will do most of the you know, sharing and engaging. But I think you're going to see more of that. Some elements of that come into Zwift, and you know, absolutely, the team is working on some things that'll tie these things better going forward.
Yeah. It's just sometimes, Eric, I mean, let me just give you one example, and I might have got this wrong, because kind of keeping across absolutely everything that's happening in Zwift can be pretty challenging at times. But let me just give you one example, and I cite this and this is only from my point of view. I don't think anybody else has said this, but Eric Chon, who a lot of people will know, is incredibly helpful on a kind of ad hoc basis in the Facebook groups. Posted a kind of, almost in passing thing that said, we've reduced the time that the join button is on screen from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. So don't worry if you don't see it when you expect it. It's to overcome crowding in the pens. Now, given the number of events on Zwift and given the level of participation in events on Zwift, that seems to me to be sort of quite an important announcement, and it seemed to be made in a kind of sort of sideways, in passing way, really. I mean, is there not a more direct means of communicating something like that to the entire community in a more urgent sort of way? Or am I overreacting?
No, that's a fair point. I think that is something that we probably should have done via email. Or multiple channels, right? Some people don't check their emails. Yeah. Other people don't have Facebook accounts. Yeah. So we need, any important piece of information, we need to hit several different channels. Yeah. So I would agree with you that if that is something that we should be sharing across several different channels.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's tough. It's very tough to know the best way to talk to people these days because there are so many.
And yeah, there are too. I mean, just within Facebook. Yeah. There are, I think, 120 Facebook groups. Yeah. Right. So how do you you try to hit the big ones, right? With important information, just the way you promote your Zwiftcast episodes. And we try to do the same, but it takes manpower.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah. Now talking of that, you're recruiting a social media manager, and let's say he or she has been in post kind of 6 months. What changes would you expect the community to see as a result of that appointment?
The Zwift as a community is 24/7, and just having one person doing social media is just not, we've cobbled it together for 2 to 3 years now, but having one in every major time zone is something that we absolutely need to have. So we're adding, in fact, we're adding 2 social media managers, right, to just keep us moving. And then we have a couple in Asia. So it's really just trying to be, we want to be more responsive, and that just takes manpower.
Yeah. So what's the kind of main job description there? Would that be responding to people who've got short-term problems, or is it trying to manage the flow of information, or what?
It's a lot of it is about sharing information. Yeah. Of course, social media person is in the ideal place to, if they have the information to respond to questions or, sometimes very simple technical issues. But it's really about moving information, keep the information flowing, because there's so much of it. And if you don't push it out at the right time, it becomes irrelevant tomorrow.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of, we have a lot of content to share, and we just need more staffing to hit all the different channels. For example, in Japan, we do have a team in Japan, and we use Facebook. We're afraid to open up Twitter, because once you open it up, it's just nonstop. Yeah. And so we need to, with more staff, we can start being more active in channels that we haven't been active in.
Okay. All right. This one is from your friend of mine, Nathan Guerra. Nathan's asking whether Zwift intends to embrace more of the interactive gaming culture using game development and marketing, or is the plan to remain kind of very firmly focused on being a cycling and running simulator with cyclists and runners as the main target, that has a kind of spring off community?
I mean, well, we're starting to we've been experimenting, right? I mean, we've got the big wheel challenge happening right now.
Yeah.
I'd be keen to hear what people are saying about that, but I think for the most part, people are enjoying seeing other avatars, right? Other bikes. And I think it's just a matter of time before we create a map with a completely different experience, more gamey than what you know of today. And so in that respect, I think we will go, we will be more of a traditional game. But in terms of marketing, I don't know. I think that's to be determined. I think we're just a different thing altogether from a traditional video game.
One for the geeks, and I know this is a complicated question that probably deserves a much longer answer. But what's your thinking on making an API available so that third parties can help shape certain aspects of Zwift?
We're definitely keen on it. It's just a question of timing. And it's amazing what the community has done without an API. So the answer is yes, but the question is when.
Right. So you're not against it in principle.
No. Well, would we open up Zwift so that the community can create their own maps? Probably we wouldn't go that far. But I think a public API is something that we definitely support, conceptually. It's just now that we've got more resources, this is the kind of project that we can tackle. And I think we'll start very simple. The perfect example is, what we don't want to do is expose too much and then have to take it away. And there have been examples of that with other companies, and it causes all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
So we'll go slow, but I can't tell you what the timing is, but it's something that we are discussing internally.
I'm sure a lot of people would welcome that. Great question from your friend of mine, James Gill, author of the immense work that is Titanium Geek. James asks, which aspect of the community that sprung up organically has surprised you the most?
That is a good question. Well, I have to say, go back to Zwift Power.
Yeah.
That's just a great resource. Talk about, the communities always seems to be, one step ahead of us, right? Because the community is incredibly talented group of people. Many of them seem to be software developers or web developers.
Yeah.
So they've been it's amazing what they've done without the public API, for example. So I'm really quite impressed with what the community has been able to do. They're always one step ahead of us, and for us to implement something like that is a much bigger undertaking for maybe not so obvious reasons. So definitely that has been something really impressive. Racing has been going on for how long? Our racing module just got launched, just months ago, right? But racing's been going on for 2 years.
Since day one,
From day one, right?
Yeah. Zwift Power is a phenomenal piece of work. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Eric, going to wrap it up soon. Thank you very much for being so generous with your time and so open about answering all these questions. But couple that are kind of just a little bit personally focused on you, if you don't mind. How long do you see yourself in a senior executive day-to-day role in Zwift?
Geez, I don't plan to go anywhere, Simon. But I would say that, we've got an incredible team. The guys who work for Zwift and the managers, all of those guys, whether it's John or Scott or Alaric, who we haven't heard much of, or Steve Beck, Mike McCarthy, these guys can, in their own right, start their own business, and to be able to be surrounded by these guys, in many ways, I've got the easiest job, and with these guys, I can focus on some of the things that, I'd like to see Zwift do in 2 years' time. So I will be very much involved in the day-to-day, but these guys are really, running their respective business.
Yeah.
And I have total confidence in what they do. We're not a bunch of 20-year-old kids, out of college deciding to start our first business. This is, for some of us, this is our second or third, startup.
Yeah, no, they're impressive guys. Whenever I've had dealings with them, you do come away with thinking, well, these guys know what they're talking about. It's obviously fun. Do you love it?
I mean, it's a dream job, right?
Yeah.
It's marrying the things that I've enjoyed all my life, as since a teenager, which is cycling, and and what I love about being an entrepreneur, which is to create something from nothing. And I think over time I've figured out what I enjoy doing the most is, apart from helping to create the concept or the business opportunity, is to actually build the team.
Yeah.
And so that's the most rewarding part. But yeah, I mean, this is just is fun. I mean, compared to my last startup where we were, enriching large, trading houses, here it's really about encouraging people to be more active, right? I mean, I feel like we're contributing to society in some respects.
Yeah.
So what's there not to like about that?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, despite everything, what we're doing here, or certainly what you guys are doing, is getting people off the couch, and that's always a good thing. Two final really quick ones, Eric. One to cover my own ass, actually, which I'll leave till the end. But the second to last one: has your FTP gone up or down in the last 12 months?
Geez, the last time I did my FTP, I think it was like 287 watts. I'm afraid that it might have gone down.
That's a terrible admission.
Yeah, it is, because I have been traveling quite a bit, and that is probably the part that I need to fix. I'm probably on the road every other week, and thank God my wife is understanding, but it's starting to wear on me as well. Yeah. I love to travel. I mean, I've been traveling for so many years. Meeting new people, and our team is dispersed in California, Rio de Janeiro, in New York, Asia, and London. So I need to bounce around a bit.
Yeah. And finally, and this is the one that covers my own backside. Is there anything that I should have asked you and I haven't? Have I missed anything big?
I don't think so. I think, well, I will tell you this. The numbers that we're seeing right now, we are 3 months ahead of schedule of last year.
Yeah.
So I expect us to have a fantastic winter. And what that might mean is you're going to see a lot of people on Zwift riding around, which I think is going to be great for the community. It's just, yesterday, just watching people ride with over 1,000 people, it's fun. Yeah, it's exciting to see all of these people, being active.
Yeah, I agree with that, and of course, it's it's a great. It's even with my just this podcast, it's really good to be part of it, and I always enjoy every ride I do on Zwift. So, Eric, thank you very, very, very much indeed for your time. You have been incredibly generous. You've not placed any restrictions on what I ask you. I will take this opportunity to thank you personally for the support that Zwift has lent to the podcast. I've made no secret of that, but again, I'll let listeners know that I am never asked to change or not do something or influence anything in any way by the team at Zwift, and for that I'm very grateful, particularly seeing as it's allied with support for the podcast. So thank you for that, and thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Always a pleasure.